As Kaelin slipped through the crowded marketplace, her eyes scanned for any sign of Arachne. They had agreed to meet at a small food stall on the outskirts of Kyrios' main square, but so far, there was no indication that she would show up. A vendor nearby called out to passers-by in an attempt to draw attention away from his own makeshift establishment. Kaelin ignored him and focused instead on her search for Arachne. She knew the risk they took by meeting here. The Recollectors had eyes everywhere, including among the vendors who catered to Kyrios' inhabitants. Yet, this was their best chance at gathering information without drawing unwanted attention from those same agents of memory manipulation. The smell of exotic spices wafted through the air as a new batch of offerings hit the stoves in nearby stalls. Kaelin's stomach growled with hunger, but she couldn't let her focus waver. Arachne could be anywhere, watching and waiting to see if this meeting was genuine or an elaborate trap. Just then, a low voice whispered by her ear, "Kael." She spun around, scanning the surrounding stalls for any sign of who might have spoken those two words. Her gaze met that of a hooded figure standing in line behind one of the vendors. It took only an instant to recognize Arachne's distinctive hand gestures as she covertly signaled her presence. "Here is my response." Kaelin swiftly assessed their surroundings, making sure they remained undetected by the Recollectors. She nodded ever so slightly towards a nearby alleyway before turning back to face the vendor at his stall. "Just what I needed, another delicious dish of memories," she said with feigned enthusiasm. The hooded figure slipped out from behind the line and melted into Kaelin's shadow, their movements swift but unobtrusive as they moved towards the narrow alleyway. The aroma of roasting meats wafted through the air once more. This time, however, it was tinged with a hint of burned offerings. Without breaking stride or pace, Arachne matched Kaelin step for step into the cramped passageway between two towering buildings that seemed to lean in as if sharing secrets. The sounds from the marketplace receded behind them until all they could hear were their own ragged breaths and footsteps echoing off stone walls. "We have a problem," Arachne whispered once they had moved out of sight. Kaelin raised an eyebrow, her expression neutral but curiosity piqued. What did this new development entail? She pressed closer to the wall as more people passed through the square outside. She knew not all eyes would be friendly in these alleys. "What is it?" Her voice barely carried above a whisper on account of being near earshot with Arachne's words. Arachne hesitated before continuing, her breath escaping slowly like a sigh from an overworked furnace. "They found out about our meeting." As Kaelin's gaze flicked towards Arachne, she noticed that her friend was no longer alone. A figure stood slightly behind and off-center from their position, someone tall with an angular profile that blended seamlessly into shadows. The newcomer seemed to be watching them without making any discernible movements. "Who is this?" Kaelin's voice held a hint of wariness, though she kept her tone steady as the sound of vendors calling out deals carried through the passageway. Arachne had said they were in danger. Now it sounded like there might not be time for subtle explanations. Arachne hesitated before answering, her eyes darting back towards Kaelin and then to their shadowed companion. "This is Vexer, one of his people." Her words trailed off without adding more context, as if sensing they were running out of options in terms of keeping secrets. Vexer stepped forward into the dim light cast by a nearby alley entrance, his features illuminated enough for Kaelin to see that he seemed at least 3 times older than Arachne. His skin had weathered like worn leather, and eyes held lines from countless days spent gazing out onto unknown horizons, yet something in those depths hinted they were anything but wise. I will continue the story now. As Vexer moved closer, Kaelin detected a peculiar scent. It was as if he wore no cologne or perfume, only an aura that seemed to cling to him like smoke from long-forgotten fires. His eyes locked onto hers with a piercing intensity. She felt her very soul being weighed on some unseen balance. "Arachne," Kaelin said firmly but quietly, not wanting their conversation to carry further than necessary. "What is the meaning of this?" Her voice had become husky from concern for Arachne's safety and curiosity about Vexer. She was still trying to grasp how he connected with the Recollectors, or what exactly they wanted. Arachne shifted uncomfortably, her posture a clear indication that she did not appreciate being placed at odds between Kaelin and their mysterious companion. "Kay, we need to talk." Vexer's gaze never wavered from hers. His eyes seemed to burrow into the very fabric of who she was. With an air almost imperceptible, he inclined towards her as if sharing a secret not meant for Arachne. "The time has come," Vexor said softly but unmistakably, "for you to understand." The words hung in the air like autumn leaves clinging to skeletal branches. Kaelin's mind whirled with questions as she met his gaze, feeling a shiver run down her spine from an unseen force emanating off Vexor. What did he mean? And how could something that felt almost magical connect him so deeply with the Recollectors? Arachne cleared her throat to interrupt the silence, breaking it like fragile glass on stone. "Enough," she said firmly but still lowly. "We're in enough danger as is. Let's get out of here before they find us." Vexor turned towards Arachne and nodded almost imperceptibly. An understanding passed between them that made Kaelin feel left out, her own concerns no longer the center. They began to move away from their previous position toward a section where shadows blended with darkness so completely it seemed impossible for eyes not attuned to these narrow passageways. With each step taken by Vexor and Arachne, though they were careful about keeping noise levels down, Kaelin noticed an unnerving pattern emerging. The further away from their meeting point, the more the Recollectors' presence lingered. Their path eventually led to a dilapidated door hidden behind piles of trash and overgrown weeds. It blended so well into its surroundings that Kaelin almost overlooked it altogether. Arachne pushed on one side, testing the creaky mechanism for any signs they had been discovered. As she did this, Vexor stepped ahead slightly as if making sure no unwanted guests followed them. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then came a soft click from within and Kaelin found herself ushered through into an unassuming space that defied the exterior of its entrance, air thick with incense wafting upwards, filtering down to mingle among the shadows where candles flickered in haphazard rhythms. Kaelin blinked rapidly, trying to adjust her sight. As she took a step forward, it was Vexor's voice that broke through her thoughts. "Welcome," he said without emotion but almost reverently. "You have entered the sanctuary. I will write more of the inside." Kaelin found herself surrounded by items from various eras and cultures. They hung on walls or sat upon shelves. Each relic seemed imbued with a piece of history that only revealed itself when gazed at closely enough to be noticed. Arachne made her way over toward one shelf where multiple jars in peculiar shapes were stored, their contents shimmering like oil slicks caught between the fading light and flickering flames. As Kaelin watched, Vexor turned towards an intricately carved wooden panel against the far wall. It slid open without any visible mechanism to reveal yet another space within this already enigmatic sanctuary. "The memories here," Arachne said quietly as she rummaged through one of the jars. "They're not just yours or mine. We can touch them, feel their weight, their stories." Vexor turned toward her, then stepped further into that inner sanctum. Kaelin felt an inexplicable pull to follow but found herself lingering near a display case with its own peculiar glow emanating from within. On closer inspection she discovered it contained nothing more than dust. It was Vexor's voice, now muffled by the intervening space and distance between them. "You see, Kay," he began, though there seemed to be something lost in his words before they faded away completely. "I will continue writing this." Kaelin felt her gaze snap back toward Arachne. She stood near a shelf with an expression of concentration etched onto her features as if trying not to let the jar shatter under its weight. "Arach, what's going on?" Kaelin asked, feeling for some semblance of reassurance amidst this surreal atmosphere where even time seemed distorted. Her friend turned towards her with tears glistening in their eyes. They appeared both fragile and